Hello and welcome everyone. This is your astrology forecast for full moon lunar eclipse in Libra. We are in eclipse season for quite some time. Eclipses are very powerful forces and they bring life-changing events. They are game changers. They bring trajectory changes in our lives. They bring huge karmic releases, and eclipses are events that are felt 4 to 6 weeks before their exact date. So most of us probably started feeling this eclipse already during the end of February, and this eclipse will be felt 4 to 6 weeks after its exact date. And the impact of eclipses is strong and long for another 6 months, and sometimes for some people it can be strong for many years, because eclipses are non-linear events. They are cyclic events, but remember that no cycle is the same, not one cycle is identical. And each new cycle brings it a little bit opens doors a little bit more. It's like we started opening doors, and each next eclipse we can open those doors a little bit more and we can see the bigger picture, we can get more clarity. But each eclipse also gives us opportunity to completely open those doors. But you know, this is mostly possible in those situations where these eclipses really bring some big, huge events in our lives. Like for those people who have personal planets at the same degree where the eclipse is happening, you know, that's where people will really feel it, but they will all feel it. And eclipses bring major goodbyes and hellos, unions and separations, marriages and divorces, you know, all these things that put us on the crossroad. You know, we can see our life before this and after this. But I'm saying again, it's not that everyone will have these huge, big changes in their lives, but we will witness maybe those changes in lives of people around us, and it will have an influence on us too, or we will have these big changes in the world globally. So eclipses are really strong, and these changes, you know, don't have to happen overnight. These are, you know, there are storylines that are being unfolded through each cycle of eclipses, and this eclipse is happening in the sign of Libra, and it's in the sign of relationships. So this will hugely impact our relationships, especially our one-on-one relationships, and generally our relationships, how we deal with relationships, who we are in our relationships, what we want from our relationships, what are our expectations in relationships. And this has influence on all our relationships, you know, our social, private, personal, intimate, business partnerships, all our relationships, including our love relationships, also our marriages, our commitments, our unions, you know, all things that include two people. And these people can be our counselors, our lawyers, our clients, our doctors, our teachers, you know, whoever we have that one-on-one relationship with. These relationships will be highlighted, but also, of course, our relationship with ourselves, because this is the primary relationship from where all other relationships are manifested, projected, and experienced. And you know, we cannot break relationship with ourselves. You know, we may not love that relationship sometimes, but we cannot escape it. We have to work on it. We have to make peace with it. We have to do something with that relationship. We cannot just say goodbye and leave. That's, you know, the most interesting thing about our relationship with ourselves. That's where we really have to do the work, where we have to pull our sleeves. And the last time this same cycle of eclipses has been active was period between April of 2004 and March 2006, and also period between October 2013 and March 2016. So these periods we had the same eclipses that were happening in Libra Aries, but the one that we had exactly same situation with the North Node and the South Node, the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra as we have now, was in period between 2004 and 2006. But even though some lessons that haven't been learned may be repeated now, it doesn't mean that the same scenarios will be happening now. It's not possible because we are different, and the eclipses give us an opportunity to see how we changed, how we evolved, how have we grown, how we matured, who are we now when compared to who we were then, how we react now to same situations that were active back then. You know, these kinds of things give us deep insights about our own transformation, about our own alchemy. And this eclipse is the South Node eclipse, which means that we have the North Node and the South Node. These are Moon's nodes, and they are mythologically known as the head and the tail of the dragon. And the South Node is the tail, so it represents the past, things that we've done many times, things that have maybe served us, but they are no longer of service, things that are outdated, things that don't make sense anymore, things that we may have to say goodbye to, things that we have to detach from, things that have been repeated over and over and over again, and we just have to say, I'm out of it. And that's what South Node eclipse is about. So this will trigger something, some pattern in our relationship, or something in our relationship where we will see that we have done this over and over again, and we are, just making a conscious decision to let it go, to release it. But maybe we won't be able to make this decision because eclipses are karmic, destined, and fated events and situations. They bring those meant to be situations in our life. They bring those situations that are inevitable, that are very necessary, that are for our soul's purpose, for our soul's evolution. And we cannot avoid these things. So whatever happens during eclipses is something that is highly meant to be, that is for our best, for our own growth, even if it doesn't seem so. So eclipses always teach us that nothing is ever truly lost. Something is being eclipsed out and something comes in. So whatever is leaving your life, know that something is definitely coming in. And this eclipse is connected with the eclipse that we are going to experience on the 8th of April. And that one will be total solar eclipse, new moon in Aries on the 8th of April. And the period between two eclipses will be very intense and strong, and will be the polarity between you and me. Us and them, you and I, me versus you. Who am I and who are you, and who am I when I'm with you, who am I when I'm without you, who am I with you, and all these possible combinations. So we're going to be able to look closely into those things. And many things may be falling away from us. There is a necessity to step away from something, and we may see like, oh, am I really going to go through this again? Like, oh, I see this, I've seen this before, I know this, and I don't want to experience it anymore. I choose something different. I choose something completely different. I'm going to change this pattern. And this is what eclipses are teaching us. And Libra, this is eclipse that is happening in Libra. Libra is the scales, the judge, in a sense of knowing to discern, between the good and evil, and knowing that nothing is black and white, and knowing to weigh things, knowing to separate things, and knowing the right measure of everything, and knowing the right amount of all ingredients in life, like the painter mixing colors, knowing the right amount of each color and knowing the right measure of everything in the process of creation. And this is about refined perception of laws of proportion and beauty. This is Venus ruled full moon eclipse, because the ruler of this full moon in Libra is, of course, Venus. Beauty, art, love, harmony, values, relationships, sacred geometry, all these things that make us enjoy, that make us feel good. This is about things that make us feel comfortable in life. And it's also about the balance. It's mostly about the balance and, need for balance between opposites. And Libra achieves this through relationships, a pair of scales. And, this is very powerful time for knowing who we are in a relationship, because we have the sun in Aries, and soon we will have that total solar new moon eclipse in Aries. And the North Node is in Aries. The North Node is the future, the head of the dragon. It's where we are supposed to move towards. It's where we are supposed to be focused on. It's the place of our highest aspirations. It's the place of our desires. So we should be focused on Aries things, and we should be leaving behind things that are not serving us in relationships, so that we can build something stable and real within ourselves, so that we can be authentic in our relationships, so that we can inspire others in our relationships, so that we can motivate, inspire and motivate Aries things in relationships, Libra, so that we can be bold and daring in our relationships, not to fall into those savior complexes, victim mentalities, domination games, manipulations, sacrificing ourselves for the sake of relationship, always trying to be one step ahead of another in a relationship, and all these things. Libra seeks to find justice, fairness, balance, equality, harmony, diplomacy, all these things, and they are very much needed in our relationships. And we have, the sun in Aries is encouraging us to take care of ourselves, of our wants and needs, and to focus on our own path. Somewhere in the middle of Aries and Libra lies the balance that, the Libran part of us so dearly desires. And it's also a very healing time for our relationships, and we can release great amount of karma through these relationships now, through the dynamics of our relationships. And of course some pain or discomfort can be exposed, and these things will expose our vulnerabilities as well. So this period of time makes us able to express our pain. We can find that we are better able to do that than at any other time now. And those closest to us could help us to activate those blind spots, and it could trigger defensiveness, of course, and anger or hurt feelings, and our woundedness is somehow brought into the open, and it could be both painful and healing at the same time. And we are more aware of how we sacrifice our needs for the sake of being in a relationship. We are going to feel these extremes of where we are either afraid of being in a relationship or afraid of not being in a relationship. These two extremes will also be very strong. And I'm not talking only about love relationships, but being in any kind of close relationships where we get close with someone. So are we dependent or independency areas? We have to build our own independency in relationships and build healthy boundaries in our relationships, definitely. And this is something that will give us a realization where we see that relationships often involve one partner being dominant while the other person loses their identity areas. And somewhere in that dynamic of relationships, one person bends to the other person's will. And this is what we are going to see, maybe not in our own relationships, but maybe in relationships of people who are close to us. Seeing how we or others bend to other people's will. And this is a time to recognize how we might need to take something back for ourselves to assert our own needs and individuality. And we are going to see how we might benefit from developing more awareness of what our nearest need from us. And the Libra part in us seeks peace and can avoid confrontation, moving away from ugly or harsh expressions of emotions. And Aries part of us isn't afraid of bringing up those subjects, those thorny subjects, uncomfortable subjects. And these things can trigger angry responses. But Libra is more adept at the art of diplomacy and reasoning, and the answer is somewhere in the middle. Just as Libra is in the middle and is the symbol of the scales and equality and fairness and justice. So because this is South Node eclipse, and this is something that we need to say goodbye to, we may be saying goodbye to our need to bring justice to something. If we have been stuck in these programs for a very long time, if we have been searching for some kind of earthly justice for a very long time, if we are obsessed with this justice, this could be a time where this culminates, this comes to a head, and it's a time of something is coming to a peak, and it can explode, and we may say like, that's it, I'm out, I've had enough. I cannot handle with this anymore. I don't need this anymore. What is this? Is this bringing me any good? Is this bringing me any value, any constructive thing in my life? And if the answer is no, of course we don't need that anymore. It's not so hard to separate from it. And if we reject what is happening naturally, if we are still holding on to something strongly, then if we are denying that something is wrong there, then the forces will do the job for us. And something will come to an end, whether we like it or not, something that is definitely toxic for us, something that is not good for us. And it's a good time for getting things out into the open to be healed, and this energy can help us find the middle ground. We can bury our hand in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist, but it's time to face ourselves and step up. And this is where we are going to feel the greatest resistance, and this is exactly where the growth is. So this full moon can also bring potential sense of upheaval and unrest. But of course it's eclipse, it's dramatic, it's intense energy, and it's full moon eclipse, so it's very strong. We are going to feel this in people around us also. Like, people may not behave as they usually do. We may have trouble with sleeping, we may have trouble doing things physical in our life, because the moon is opposing the sun in Aries. Aries, our body, our head, our physicality, our vitality. And the moon also deals with the body, so we may feel like we are heavy, like we have, hundreds of tones. We may feel very heavy, but this is a time to release, and it's a lot about releasing. Just like the previous lunation of new moon in Pisces, this also has a lot of Pisces energy, this eclipse, because the ruler of this eclipse is Venus, and Venus is in Pisces, and Venus is exalted in Pisces. This is where she feels the best. This is where she can express her love unconditionally, but she is somewhere behind the scenes, and she is in conjunction with Saturn during this time. So there is something, that we have to take responsibility for. Take responsibility for our feelings. Take responsibility for our own self-worth. We cannot blame others if we feel unworthy. We cannot say that others may make us feel unworthy. This is what we do to ourselves. Nobody can make me feel unworthy if I am not feeling unworthy with myself. Nobody can do it. It's our we are giving allowance for that to happen. So it's time for building those healthy boundaries in relationships. Saturn, boundaries, Venus, relationships, and in Pisces, it's about spirituality. It's about meditation. It's about rest and relaxation. It's about retreat. All these things. We may need to go somewhere to take some rest because of all this energy, or we may go with somebody. This is relationship, so we may go with someone for a healing. We may do some relationships healing, but it's much more complex than that, because we cannot solve these problems externally. We have to deal with these inner conflicts within ourselves. So this me versus you, it's about us looking at those mirrors, and we may see some ugly mirrors, so we have to face with them too. This is some crisis that pushes us out of balance. Libra, the balance. So we are going to see where we are disbalanced, where are we out of balance. So these are extremes: fear of loss and need for control. We may feel these things strongly. Aggression versus peace. Mars and Venus, two rulers of both of these eclipses. Their role is very important. Mars and Venus, our masculine and feminine, our left and right hemispheres, our intuition and our action. And as I said, aggression versus peace, power battles, peace and war, Aries and Libra, Alpha and Omega, Aries and Libra also has the glyph very similar to the symbol of Omega and to the sunset. If we look at the glyph of Libra, it looks like the sunset, and Libra in the natural zodiac is the 7th house. It's on the descendant. It's where the sun is setting, and Aries is on the ascendant, where the sun is rising. So we are going to feel these dynamics, and we also have the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. It doesn't matter on which hemisphere we are. These things are strongly felt. The sun is entering Aries, and it's the time for new beginnings. It's an astrological new year. It's known as Ostara, Eastern, related to East Star, to Ishtar, to Inanna, to all these deities of ancient times that are all different names of Venus, actually. And now I'm again going to read some things from the book. This is not the Age of Aquarius, this is another one. And for everyone who asked in previous live where they can find the book, The Age of Aquarius, this book and this one also, this one is called The Moon and the Sacred Feminine. All these books can be found on Moon Omens website. So you just go to Moon Omens website and you'll find it in products, in books. So when we're talking about Venus, I'm going just to read a couple of things now that I've mentioned these old names. of Venus. Let me just find it. Just one moment, please. I forgot, where is it? Cycles of Venus, her sacred path and her pentagram. Okay, here we go. Venus has many names because she has different phases and cycles as well as the moon. She is Aphrodite, she is Ishtar, she is Inanna, Isis, East Star, Astarte, and many others. She is also Ereshkigal, she is all of them. Aphrodite and aphrodisiacs, Venus and veneration, Mary Magdalene, Magi, magicians, magnetism, Mother Mary, Eternal Virgin, Virgin Mary. Her cycle moves from the morning star to evening star. She is the rose in the heart. Energies and entities from Venus form roses. She forms a pentagram during her 8-year cycle. She is the most mystical, mysterious, occult, and the most powerful of all of them. She is multi-layered, complex, divine, and wild. She has many faces and phases. Venus is also known as the petals of a rose. And okay, I can read just a couple of more things. This is the story of metamorphosis and transmutation from morning star to evening star and vice versa, from life to death and to rebirth again. This is the same myth of Inanna and Ereshkigal and of Demeter and Persephone. Solomon's temple has actually been devoted to Inanna, to Ishtar, to Venus. Salem means Venus, and Jerusalem is probably the city of Venus as well. And so on and so on. These are some of the mystical and mysterious things about Venus. And it's talking about how she is creating sacred geometry and pentagram and the rose and the petals. You know, some of these things. Sacred geometry. And we are going to experience these things strongly now, and many mythologies are expressed through us in our personal lives. If we study mythology, we are going to see that we are actually reproducing those mythologies in our lives. We are seeing them, we are bringing them to earth, we are embodying them. And for example, the ancient Egyptians, they recognized Libra as a constellation that was still connected to that scorpionic realm of the dead in their mythology. And Egyptian religion and society was based on Maat. If you haven't heard for Maat, you can do your research. It's known as the cosmic order in Egypt, which had to be balanced against Isfet, known as chaos. So Maat covered all areas, from the physical world and politics to personal conduct and ethics, and everybody was expected to live according to the laws of Maat. And after death, Anubis led the soul into the hall of two truths in the underworld to be judged. And do you see the correlation with Libra archetype? So the hall of two truths, two scales, in the underworld to be judged. You know, the justice, the judge, Libra archetypes. And the heart was weighed against the feather of Maat on a pair of scales. So before the weighing of the heart, the soul had to make some confessions about what it hasn't done. There are 42 principles of Maat. You can find them on the internet. It's something like such as, you know, I have not cursed, I have not lied, I have not stolen, I have not closed my ears to the truth, I have not caused disruption of peace, I have not polluted the water. There are some very interesting there. And this has very much to do with this Libra archetype, and we may feel judged. We may feel guilty for something. We may feel like our heart is weighed on that scales, like we are being led into that underworld, into the hall of two truths, where we are being prosecuted, you know. And the moon is completely alone on the other side of the chart. Everything is on one side of the chart, and the moon is alone there in Libra. So it may feel like all eyes are on the moon there. All eyes on you, and you are being judged for something. So we may feel that expression of these mythologies in our personal lives. And this Maat was the goddess and personification of truth and justice. She regulated the stars and the seasons, and she also represented the balance and harmony and morality and law, all these things that Libra archetypes is related to. And the concept of Maat is also very closely related to Taoist principle of Tao, or the way of heaven, and also it's related to Dharma in Buddhism and Hinduism. So the idea of judgment implies the existence of universal principles of right and wrong. And, this is how we can base our judgment. And the scales of Maat represent these principles and the ideal of life as fair and just. So, but this is very superficially seen. Like if we are good, we are going to be rewarded. And if we are bad, we'll be just removed or punished or something. This is not so simple. Life is not so simple. Life is not so straightforward, as we know. And no matter how hard we try to live up to those ideals of the good and the true and the beautiful and the harmony, we are going to fail somewhere. So nobody's perfect. And Libra is strongly related with Virgo and Scorpio. She is right in the middle between Virgo and Scorpio. And in ancient times, Libra constellation was known as the claws of Scorpio. And so Libra archetype carries something from Virgo and from Scorpio as well. So Virgo, the perfectionism, we have to be perfect, not to be judged, not to be seen as this or that. And then Scorpio, the dark side of it, where we cannot do it all, where we just feel that strong, intense energy of everything, and like everything is temporary in this world and is going to be gone, and I'm going to lose it, so I want to cling on it, I want to hold on to it, so I'm sacrificing myself for the sake of relationship, of not losing it. So we are somewhere in between these needs to be perfect and not to lose anything or anyone. And Libra archetype also, it's about people pleasing, as we know. So we have to be able to stand back and take a rational, balanced perspective in order to resolve these dilemmas and conflicts, And also we have in Babylonian astrology, we have Libra known as Zibanu, and it means the scales. It also means the scales or the balance of heaven. But they also called Libra the claws of Scorpio, and the scales belonged to the sun god known as Utu or Shamash, and Utu ruled over justice and truth and was associated with law and order. So, as the sun, he represented the power of light to reveal the truth by shining into the darkness. And this is something that we are going through right now. We are asked to walk through that darkness to shine our light there. And Libra is also very complex. Every sign is complex. There is no archetype that is simple, and especially, of course, this is not only about Libra, but Libra is very eclipse is happening, so this theme is very strong. But we have Aries on the other side. We have Pisces, the ruler of this energy in Pisces, and this full moon is making a supportive trine aspect with Pluto in Aquarius. So we have support from Pluto, we have support to be transformed, support to go into that underworld and to be judged by our own conscience. We are never judged by anybody else, we are only judged by our own conscience. And these are centripetal and centrifugal forces, and they are known as, the forces of good and evil. spirit and matter, life and death, and also, you know, we have the creator and the destroyer, the God and the devil, Adam and Eve, all these things. They are two powers through which this eternal conflict keep the universe of spirit and matter in harmony, actually. So this conflict actually keeps the universe in harmony, and we are learning how to balance these oppositions within. It's about balancing the opposites without denying the importance of validity of either side. And sometimes this balance leads us to balance, because when we are disbalanced, we know what we have to work on, we know what needs to be corrected and fixed, and extremes leads us to balance as well. What disbalances us, it corrects us. So this balance is not so bad, so we may see where are we being disbalanced, so that we can create that balance again. And we are, you know, feeling like we are on the pendulum of these extremes, swinging on the pendulum of life between, you know, faith and mistrust, swinging between life and death. But, you know, this is balance between the day and night, balance between the light and dark. And this equinox means equal day and equal night. So we are reminded how to bring that equality within us, to have equal amount of masculine and feminine, equal amount of light and dark, and to have it in balance, in alignment, in peace. You know, it's important that these daytime and nighttime cycles are balanced. It's important, just as we don't put excessive amount of light into the nighttime environment. You know, when it's night, when we are going to sleep, we turn off the light. We won't sleep with lights on. So this is what we are learning now, how to wisely use these natural laws, and how to use the amount of light and dark within us in a constructive way. We can always, you know, create that still water. It always comes back to that state of being. If you have been watching the water, you know, water can be reshaped in all kinds of ways. It can go wild, but eventually it always comes back to that state of being calm. And, you know, no matter how many waves and crashes of waves the water goes through, it changes and modifies, but it's still water after all. And it always comes back into that state, and so are we. So eclipses have the power to put us back on the track if we have taken some wrong turns, if we have gone far away somewhere where we shouldn't be. So this eclipse will put us back on the track. And we may say like, no, but I want to go this way, but something knows better than we do. So this is about our projections onto others, our decision to blame others instead of seeing our own projections, our decision to praise others and to give away our power to those we praise. Admire failing to realize that those are also our own projections. And we shouldn't avoid criticism. This is something that is really big thing to become aware of. We are all very sensitive to criticism, but we should see criticism alone, without the criticizer, you know, and see what that triggers in us, you know. And we may see that some small things can have very big shadows, as I spoke about somewhere in some of our videos. You know, small things can really have big shadows, and we may see if we are able to detach the critic from the criticizer and see why it affects us the way it affects us. We may see that those are actually some small things that have grown big, and they have grown big because we didn't deal with them. So, you know, we are this is about understanding that, you know, the more we try to be, the more an individual tries to be more to others, the less the individual is to himself. How can I say this more precisely? I don't know, but the more we try and the more effort we put to be there for another person, the more we lose our own authenticity and ourselves. This doesn't mean that we are not there for others, but it means that we know the right measure, that we know when to stop. But sometimes we go over the limits and we give ourselves, you know, too much, and we give too much, and of course this leads to hurt and betrayal. That's the law of this balance, because we have created this balance. But it's not our fault. It's something that is shown to us, that we can work on, that we can rebalance ourselves. So it's all about, you know, bringing that balance into our life. And just understanding how these things work is really powerful if we are open-minded to deal with those things. And we may have to deal with some suppressed anger. You know, we have that Sun in Aries, and Chiron, the wounded healer, is in Aries as well. Mercury is in Aries, and Mercury is soon to go retrograde. So we are going to question ourselves a lot, and this eclipse is triggering all of that and putting it in the spotlight. So it's about expressing and suppressing. It's about the outward and inward. It's about the day and night. It's about the sunrise and sunset. It's about, you know, becoming, seeing how we are becoming martyrs in families and with friends, within social circles too, or how others are becoming martyrs. There is a lot of pressure between altruism and spiritualism. Are we altruistic or spiritualistic? Do we have wrong, completely twisted perception of what altruism is? Do we have a need to be good just in order to be loved and liked? These are some complexities. You know, we have a need to be so good, to tolerate so much, so that we don't lose others. And we also have another extreme of this, of course. We have those different behaviors completely opposite from this one, where people are continuously rejecting people from themselves, where they are rude, where they don't take into consideration anything about the other person. Or both of these extremes are rooted in our traumas. You know, understanding these dynamics in relationships is very powerful, because we learn ourselves through others. We learn so much about who we are, Aries, through our relationships with others, Libra. So this is a, you know, dynamic stillness. Aries is dynamic and Libra is stillness. And balance through movement, symmetry and sacred geometry. And without symmetry, there is no sacred geometry. There is no harmony of spheres. So we need to practice these things. The symmetry in our life, the symmetry in our relationships. And we are going to be faced with indecisiveness too, because Libra, the scales, should I do this or should I do that? So we may be very indecisive, and this is very unpredictable energy because it's eclipse, and it can be very sudden and out of blue. But we have also support, because we have Venus, the ruler of this eclipse, in a supportive sextile with Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus, and Venus also rules Taurus. So we have a very good synergy between Venus, Jupiter and Uranus, and the signs of Pisces and Taurus, where we can embody our feelings, where we can feel safe suddenly, out of nowhere. We can grow through these things, through our relationships, and we can feel abundance in our bodies thanks to these processes that we are experiencing now. So we have some willingness to compromise. But if we have done some overcompensation, because Libra can compensate a lot, and if we have done it many times, if there was overcompensation and too many compromises, it's time to step away from it. You know, it's time to cut those cords, because the South Node, it says it's the past. It's something that belongs to the past, and you cannot take it with you. It's not aligned with your future self. And as I said, this full moon eclipse is in trine aspect with Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto in Aquarius, very futuristic energy. It's about our future, where we are supposed to go from here, and what no longer can go with me further in the future. So if something is not supported but by my future self, my version of the future, it will be gone. And you know, this willingness to compromise can be our willingness to compromise with others, or our willingness to compromise with ourselves, or both. But we are going to see, depending on each person's situation. And of course, you can check where Libra placement is in your chart, especially where 5 degrees and near 5 degrees are. If there are any personal planets near 5 degrees of Libra or Aries, this is going to be very strong. Big life-changing changes, major endings and beginnings. Something that is deeply transformative, because we have Pluto here. But Pluto is in trine. It's not square, it's trine. So it gives us support. It supports that transformation. It's transformation that is wanted and needed, and that won't be so hard for us. And you know, we know that to be accepted is profoundly healing. When we are accepted somewhere, it's very healing. But why don't we then do that with ourselves? You know, we don't accept our situations in life, we don't accept our choices and decisions if they don't turn out to be as we wanted them to be. You know, if we could live in a way that we accept every situation that is happening to us in every moment, like I'm accepting this, I'm accepting this, I'm accepting this, this would bring enormous healing. But remember, acceptance doesn't mean that we are not doing anything, that we are just accepting and doing nothing. No, it means, okay, I'm accepting this situation and I'm going to do the best to make something constructive out of it, to make it work, not just, you know, passively accepting things. And of course, this requires deep trust within ourselves. But this is what we are building now. This is what is asked of us to do. And this is something that is really teaching us that we are actually victims of our own conflicted mind. You know, I am not victim of my family, of my ancestors, of my environment, of my education, of my teachers, of whoever, my friends, my partners. I am not victim in any way. I'm not even victim of myself. But if we can transition from that place where we are feeling victimized by society, and if we transition into realizing that we are victims of our own conflicted mind, that's a very big step towards liberation from all these narratives and programs that we keep carrying with ourselves. And it's about accepting our inner journey. Venus is in Pisces, Saturn is in Pisces, our inner journey. We have to accept it. And this is the time of strong integration of masculine and feminine energy. So we are going to see where have we made ourselves small because of others. You know, this gets us out of compromise, out of comparing, out of feeling stuck. And there is also a risk, but we are ready to go for it. It's a risky energy. And you know, Aries is ourself, and Libra is side of ourself that we see as others. And something here is reminding us that we are not alone. You know, we are partnering up either with somebody or with our spirit, partnering up with our intuition. And something is putting us into that balance. We can overcome our insecurities, definitely. We are going to see how we partner with energies. What kind of partner are we to ourselves? Am I a partner to myself that I would love to be? We can work on these things to become ideal partners to ourselves. You know, we have to do these things to feel very safe, to build some safety net. You know, it's very, very good energy to connect with the energy of the moon and Venus and Pisces. You know, Venus is goddess of peace and serenity. It's about balance and state of equilibrium. And especially in Pisces, we can find that peace within ourselves, that state of equilibrium, finding that sweet point and that sweet spot. And also asking ourselves, are we able to recognize beauty? That's also very healing. Our ability to recognize beauty in all things around us is very healing. You know, we can calm down the nervous system by observing beauty around us. And you know, Venus is goddess of arts and creativity, artistic things and beauty, inner peace. So this is very powerful, these things. It can calm us down. Music, melodies, paintings, arts of any kind. And if we can discover and recognize those things in everything, not only in arts, if we can see art in everything, in our relationship, in our way of living our life, we can create art of our life. It's really powerful time for that. But since this is Libra, the scales, we will be able to see two sides of every story. And there are paradoxes in life. But Libra has a high level of tolerance with paradoxes. And we also have Pluto in Aquarius. Aquarius is about paradoxes. Pisces is also about paradoxes. So we will be able to learn about paradoxes, to accept them, to step out of our only rational, logical, linear way of experiencing life and ourselves. It's huge energy, and it reminds us of the truth and kindness. You know, being kind and being true. But shadow side of Libra can be, you know, as I said, overcompensation, people pleasing, white lies, avoiding conflicts, you know, too much compromise, passive aggressiveness, which leads us towards resentment in our close relationships. So that's why we have to build some healthy boundaries, to know when to say stop, I have to step back. Or if we are too self-absorbed, also when we know to get out of that self-absorption and step into a relationship, when we have two perspectives work simultaneously. And you know, the question is, how can I remain in balance? How can I stimulate that inner calmness? How can we have perpetual peace within chaos? And it's not easy, of course, but this is something that gives us inspiration to always work on self-betterment and self-improvement. So we are going to see where we have gone into extremes. What are we doing too much that we need to balance? So we are going to experience self-realization through relationships. And this is very intellectual energy, very mental as well, because it's air sign, Libra. It's about our intellect, our common sense too. So we have to balance between, these Pisces energies that are a little bit illogical, irrational, transcendental, and then this Libra energy. So we are going to experience these paradoxes, as I said. And we are going to experience our own individuality through the reflection of other. So this is about, digging into the nature of how we interact with others. We are evolving and growing as persons through relationships. And we are learning so much more. Learning through reflection of self and another. And relationships are, of course, very complex. How can we collaborate and be realistic in relationships? There are always tensions. There is always some kind of tension and drama. And these are going to be karmic events, karmic connections and disconnections, karmic meetings, karmic separations and unions, karmic marriages and divorces, all things that are really meant to be, that have to happen. And we need others as our mirrors. So somebody may be eclipsed out of our life, and somebody may come into our life, or something big will be transformed in our significant personal relationships. And we need conflicts in life. We avoid conflicts and we get hurt all the time. Conflict should be seen as something constructive. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's time to accept things that we find uncomfortable. And differences between us are very useful. We need to be different. There needs to be difference so that dynamic can exist, so that the attraction can exist. There are no two same people in the world. And during this time, many of us may be searching for a counselor or for a therapist or for a lawyer. These are things where we need that one-on-one connection with someone, where we need someone to talk to, and where we may have to detach from someone and find somebody else to talk to. These kinds of very deep relationship changes are going to be active for a very long time. And also we are going to see, are we pretending that everything is fine in order to keep peace? Are we deceiving ourselves with someone? What are we avoiding to face? But this is all us. We project it all onto others. Whatever we suppress within ourselves, it becomes projected onto others. So if we are too nice, we may attract someone who is not so nice, who is aggressive. So if we suppress anger within ourselves, we are probably attracting someone who expresses that anger all the time. If we suppress kindness, if we are on the other side where we are angry and aggressive all the time, we are going to attract someone who is always kind and nice, but we don't recognize these things because we are too imprisoned by our own subjective wishes and desires. So what do we do when a person who is too nice attracts someone who is aggressive? They get into that game where they become trapped into that relationship, and they are feeding off each other. They don't become aware of their programs. So the person who is too nice thinks that she did something wrong, or why is this happening to me? Why am I always attracting this person? Why is this happening to me? How can I get out of it? And stuff like that. And this person doesn't resolve that within himself or herself, but thinks that the problem is in another person. And the other side, if the person who is aggressive and violent and traumatized and expressing that trauma in aggressive and violent way attracts someone who is nice and very forgiving and highly tolerant, that this person will wants to keep that person forever, because I can do anything and everything will always be forgiven. I can behave like this all the time. I can, these kinds of scenarios will be strong, and we, as I said, we don't have to necessarily experience this in our personal life, but we may be witnesses of these cases. We may be seeing these things happening around us, or in our family, or with our friends, and with people we know. And we are going to see how our first relationships ever conditioned all our relationships. I spoke about this also before. What are our first one-on-one relationships? What is our first relationship with someone? It's our relationship with our mother and father, with somebody who raised us, with our brother and sister. We are looking at these things as our limitations. We are all unique. We do not need to be understood by everyone. This is also something to be aware of. And codependency, independence, interdependence, these things will be strong. And how do we bring balance between us? The union of I into we becomes the gateway into the collective awareness. And in Libra, person becomes aware of the other for the first time. We have the first 6 signs: personal development, from Aries to Virgo, personal development. Then we have Libra, so we are becoming aware of the other, and this is where the dynamism becomes strong. And as I said, me versus you, this crisis that pushes us out of balance so that we can rebalance ourselves. And too much of Aries can be selfish and aggressive and violent, but too much of Libra can be people-pleasing, harmony at all costs, strong effort to keep things nice. And, we can do some pretty crazy things in the name of peace. And we know this, we've seen this in the world and in our relationships and in relationships of people around us. We are confronting shadows, definitely, in others and within ourselves. And, we are seeing ourselves mirrored by our closest ones. And we can discover many, many things now through our relationships. Big epiphanies in relationships and through relationships is happening now. And balance is very much needed. Let's remember this balance. When we feel we are going into some extreme, let's step back. When we feel we are becoming too aggressive, let's lower it. When we feel we are becoming too nice, too forgiving, too tolerant, let's again remember, come back into that stillness. Remember that still water. We can observe the level of the sea and see how it always comes back to that peaceful state of being, and we can apply this into our own lives within ourselves. And there is one quote, of course, again Rumi, my favorite, and it says, "Your hand opens and closes, opens and closes. If it were always a fist or always stretched open, you would be paralyzed. Your deepest presence is in every small contracting and expanding, the two as beautifully balanced and coordinated as birds' wings." And with this I would end this forecast, and I wish you a very happy full moon lunar eclipse, a happy journey into discovery of the self through relationships. And we are going to experience a lot in this period between 2 eclipses. The next one is on the 8th of April, and let's do some magic with ourselves. Let's create this power within ourselves. Let's be balanced. Remember the scales and the laws. I love you, and see you in 2 weeks. Bye bye.